Marty and Sherry here for our live tonight.
Hello.
Tonight we're going to talk about family violence awareness. That's what this month was, Family Violence Awareness Month. We've got a bunch of information, some stats for you guys. After that, we're going to recap what we did for events this month, stuff like that. If you guys have questions, anything, make sure you jump in. Anything you want to say before we
basically, because it's Family Violence Awareness Month, we just wanted to go online, pull a bunch of information and resources. So we do have a bunch of information that will be on our website that we'll talk about at the end, but otherwise we're just going to go through a bunch of the information that we found doing research this month. So to start off, basically what is family abuse? So family violence is an abuse of power in a family or other trusting relationship where people rely on each other. Family violence is a broad term that includes domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, child abuse, neglect and sexual exploitation, child sexual abuse, elder abuse and neglect, witnessing and abuse of others in the family. So definitely lots of things going on there. So abusive and violent behaviors can happen in private or in front of others. And so these are a bunch of examples that we were able to pull. So we'll go through these with you guys.
All right, we're going to start with physical abuse. Hitting, punching, kicking, biting, scratching or pulling hair, throwing or hitting you with things, using or threatening to use a weapon.
Verbal abuse would include name-calling, put-downs, yelling, and swearing.
Emotional or psychological abuse, making fun of you, your family and your friends or your beliefs, threatening to hurt or kill you, your children, pets, family members, or friends, threatening suicide or to take the children if you leave, threatening to have you deported, refusing you to support you or share physical affection because you are pregnant.
So financial abuse, limiting your access to cash, bank accounts, credit cards, or other family finances, preventing you from working, spending your paychecks without your consent, running up debts in your name or selling your possessions without permission, destroying your personal property.
Neglect, failing to make sure a child or another dependent is safe and has emotional support and basic daily needs met.
Control, forced isolation, or confinement. So controlling what you do, where you go, or who you talk to and see. Limiting, delaying, or denying your access to health supports or medical care. Controlling your access to food, supplies, prenatal supports when you are pregnant. Forcing you to work beyond your ability. Keeping you a prisoner in your home and abandoning you somewhere.
Sexual abuse, saying things or making gestures or sounds that make you feel degraded, uncomfortable, or unsafe. Forcing you to be touched, kissed, or have sex without your consent. Making you dress in a sexual way. Making you feel like you owe the other person sex. Trying to give you a sexually transmitted disease. Trying to give you a sexually transmitted disease. Refusing to use condoms or birth control.
Spiritual abuse, making fun of your beliefs, preventing you from taking part in spiritual practices.
Stalking, following you around and watching where you live or work, sending you unwanted texts or emails, making unwanted visits or calls to you, contacting your family, friends, or coworkers and asking what you are doing and where you are, threatening behaviors like leaving notes on your vehicle or door to your home or workplace.
So again, guys, any of these things would be considered a form of violence, specifically family violence. So if you're experiencing any of these things, you definitely need to reach out to somebody. So we're going to continue on with know the warning signs. So people affected by family violence may cope differently. Some of the common warning signs would include, so there's a bunch here that we have listed off that we'll go through with you.
Adults may withdraw from family and friends, stop going out or doing activities they used to enjoy, show a change in personality, including mood swings, show signs of depression or anxiety, hint about abuse, talk about their partner's substance use or abuse and concerns about their children seeing it, have unexplained bruises or other injuries, not want to make even simple decisions without their partner, have limited access to money, begin to use or abuse drugs or alcohol as a way to cope.
Children may often be left alone, hungry, dirty, or not dressed for the weather. Try to take an adult responsibilities like caring for siblings, doing household tasks, or looking after a parent. Acting aggressively towards others, withdraw from others, lack of energy, or act passively. Be extremely watchful or feel fearful of parents' reactions. Have problems at school or with their grades. Have unexplained bruises or other injuries. Know more about sex than is normal for their age. Start smoking or using drugs or alcohol to cope. Run away from home repeatedly.
Youth may have mood swings, change their style of clothing, makeup, or hair, start hanging out with different people, skip or drop out of school, or have falling or failing grades, overreact to things that seem small or unimportant, seem to lose confidence in themselves, withdraw from friends or family, stop going out or doing activities they used to enjoy, have unexplained bruises or other injuries, start smoking or using drugs or alcohol to cope, run away from home repeatedly.
Older adults may seem frightened, withdrawal, or depressed, seem groggy all the time, possibly due to over-medicating, show signs of depression or anxiety, lose weight or seem too thin, wear dirty clothes or clothing not suitable for the season, not have their glasses, dentures, hearing, or other assistive devices, have unexplained bruises, scars, sores, or other injuries, be isolated from others, have items missing from their homes, have someone cashing their pension checks or withdrawing money from their bank accounts, have their medications taken from them. So again, guys, depending on the different ages, there could be different signs. Some things are similar. Regardless of the age, anyone is susceptible to family abuse, family violence, regardless of whether they're a child, they're an adult, or they're a senior. So if you're noticing some signs, reach out to that person, or check out the links and stuff that we're going to be posting, because there's actually numbers that you can call just to get free advice and information if you suspect something, things that you can do, things that you should be doing, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like I said, it's good to make sure that you're at least talking to somebody, or you're at least trying to reach out if you can. So next is, if you are in a situation of family violence and you decide that you want to leave. So these are some of the steps that are suggested that adults should take. So we'll go through those with you guys.
Write down incidents. Keep a record of any violent, abusive, harassing, and stalking activities that happen if you can. Write down details about the incident as well as the time and date it happened. Ending an abusive relationship may be dangerous, whether you live with the person or not. You can create a safety plan that prepares you to end or leave a family violence or domestic violence situation. Take these actions to make your safety plan.
So one of the things you should do is talk to someone that you trust. Tell them that you're being abused. Discuss how they can help you stay safe. You may want to keep the abuse private, but when people outside your home know about the abuse, they can help you keep you safe and your children and your pet safe. The Family Violence Info Line can help you with your safety plan. Other supports to leave an abusive support, so you can call them 24/7 at 310-1818. And you can get help anonymously in more than 170 languages. You can also find other supports and resources online that will meet your needs. And like I said, we're going to be posting all those links on our website and on Facebook as well. So,
Plan your exit strategy. Decide where you and your children can go if you need to leave in a hurry. Be careful about going to a home of a friend or relative where your abuser will think to look. That could be dangerous for everyone involved. Consider an emergency shelter near you. If you do plan to go to someone's home, arrange this ahead of time. That way, if you arrive with no notice, they will know to let you in, lock the doors, and ask questions later. Figure out where pets will stay. Alberta SPCA's pet safekeeping program can help. Look for safe places that are open 24 hours where you can be safe while you call for help. Decide when to talk to your children about leaving. Hide money and spare change to take with you. Open your own bank account if you can. If you need to break your rental lease, get a safer spaces certificate and to avoid paying a penalty. Get help with costs to leave an abusive situation and get to safety. Set up a household or start a new life.
So yeah, with the safety spaces certificate, you can go on alberta.ca's website and they have the application that you can fill out. So if you're leaving an abusive relationship, you can actually fill out this form and they'll give you a certificate, so that way if you do have to break the lease, you will not be required to be subject to any penalties. So you won't have to pay any penalties or fees or fines or anything for breaking the lease early. You'll be completely exempt of all that in exchange for having the Safer Spaces certificate. So again, we'll have links for that as well, but you can also just go on alberta.ca. If you live in other provinces, definitely go on your government website and see what's available. If they don't have something that's the exact same, I'm sure they may have something similar. So if not, reach out to us and we'd be happy to look into it for you as well. Packing your bag. So pack an emergency bag with identification, important documents, and other things that you will need when you leave. Hide the bag where you can grab it quickly or ask a trusted friend or a shelter to keep it for you. Pack things for yourself and your children.
Stop contact. Give an abusive partner you do not live with or stalker one clear message that you want the relationship and all contact with you, your family, and friends to end. Do not contact the abusive partner or stalker after you give this message. Do not contact an abuser you live with after you leave. Consider contacting your local police service or victim service unit to find out about emergency restraining and protection orders. Decide if you want to get legal advice about filing for custody if you have children. Ask the police to take you back to your home if you are afraid to go alone after you leave.
So if you decide to stay, there's some tips here just to keep in mind. If you choose to continue the relationship with an abusive partner, follow these suggestions to stay safe. So pay attention to changes in the person's mood and behaviors. Move to a safe room with windows or doors to outside when an abusive or violent situation happens. Avoid conflict in the kitchen and garage, which may have things that can be used as weapons. Teach your children and others to leave the room or home when the family violence or domestic violence is happening, and call 911 when they are out of the abuser's sight. Have a packed bag hidden where the abuser will not find it, but you can easily get it and go. So being cautious and doing what you can to protect yourself and whoever else is in that situation, children, pets, is key. So if you're not ready to leave yet, then be diligent in doing everything you can to protect your children, your pets, and yourself until you are ready to leave, and always have a bag ready, and we encourage you to reach out and speak to somebody, even if it's just a friend or a colleague, an employer, somebody. If you have to call a 1-800 number and talk to somebody anonymously, I would 100% encourage that as well. So family violence, how big is this problem in Canada? So we have a bunch of just little bits of information and stats that we'll kind of bounce back and forth and go through with you here.
Of all reported violent crime in 2016, more than one quarter, 26%, resulted from family violence. Almost 67% of family violence victims were women and girls.
So family violence is underreported. Experts know that rates of all forms of family violence are underestimated. For example, in 2014, fewer than 19% who had been abused by their spouse reported abuse to police. So less than 19% of family violence abuse is being reported. We know when it comes to sexual abuse, that number sits around 5%. So both of these are extremely underreported, and that definitely needs to change.
Speaking up.
Yeah.
There are always many reasons why people don't report family violence. One is because of the stigma associated with it. Young children may not report violence because they may have limited contacts outside of the family in whom they can safely confide.
According to police-reported data in 2016, women aged 15 to 24 presented the highest rates of dating violence.
Half of
Just nearly 60% of Indigenous.
Nearly 60% of Indigenous women who reported spousal abuse also reported being physically injured as a result of it, versus 41% of non-Indigenous women.
Half of the Indigenous women experiencing violence reported the most severe forms of violence, being severely assaulted, beaten, choked, or threatened with a gun or knife.
Women who self-identified as lesbian or bisexual reported significantly higher rates of violence by a partner than heterosexual women, 11% versus 3%.
Yeah, so that's quite an increase.
It is.
So child abuse and neglect. So in 2012, Canadian Community Health Survey, mental health, said 32% of Canadian adults reported that they had experienced some form of abuse before the age of 16. So 26% had experienced physical abuse and 10% had experienced sexual abuse. 8% had experienced exposure to intimate partner violence.
According to the 2009 General Social Survey on Victimization, 6% of individuals with a current or former spouse reported being physically or sexually victimized by their spouse in the preceding 5 years. In 2019, 64% of those with children who experienced violence by an ex-spouse indicated that a child had seen or heard the violence. Less than one quarter of spousal violence victims reported the violence to police.
Yeah, so according to police-reported data, in 2010 there were almost 99,000 victims of family violence in Canada who reported to the police, accounting for 1/4 of all victims of police-reported violent crimes. Of these, almost half, 49%, were victims of spousal and ex-spousal violence, while the other half, 51%, were children, siblings, or extended family members. So, yeah, over half of those were children or siblings, which is unfortunate. In 2011, almost 1/3, so 32.6%, of solved homicides were committed by a family member.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's, 2011, 1/3 of solved homicides were committed by a family member. And then here we have Damon Starrett, who is sitting on bail, who allegedly murdered his son. And apparently these numbers, aren't known by the right people because, that definitely needs to change.
Absolutely. According to Statistics Canada in 2014, 31% of spousal violence victims reported sustaining physical injuries as a result of spousal violence, Overall, these proportions have remained steady over the past decade.
Yeah, so findings from the 2014 GSS indicates that 48% of individuals who reported experiencing spousal violence reported having been physically and or sexually abused as a child. So 48% of people who experienced spousal violence reported also being physically abused or sexually abused as a child. So this is something that's carrying over into their adulthood. So this really shows how sexually abuse on children really affects them for the long run. Since 2004, most provinces have recorded significant declines in self-reported spousal violence. The largest declines were in Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. So good job, Western Canada. Yeah, good job. Definitely need to keep that up. Those numbers need to keep going down.
1/4 of the victims of police-reported violent crimes are victimized by a family member. Youth aged 12 to 17 years were at the highest risk of family and non-family related sexual offenses.
Yeah, so again, it's just crazy. Impacts on Canadians. Well, and that's just the thing, like, you know, people don't, they always hear about this stuff and they just assume like, oh, this just happens in the States, this just happens, you know, in America, and you know, Canada is a peaceful, loving, great place. And it's like, guys, our numbers aren't that much better. If we look at our, you know, our per capita numbers, like they're better, but they're not great. They're not anything that makes me comfortable, that's for sure.
God no.
They certainly shouldn't make you comfortable. So impacts on Canadians. Here's just a bunch of information of basically how family violence impacts all Canadians, whether your family has violence in it or not. This affects our financials quite a bit when it's actually broken down and you get to see. So we'll kind of explain to you some of the information we found out about that as well. So yeah, right there we're at.
All members of society are affected by family violence. There can be long-term impacts of violence on victims, physical and emotional health that can result in their inability to work, loss of wages, lack of participation in regular activities, and limited ability to care for themselves and their children. Children may suffer long-term emotional, behavioral, and developmental problems that can even lead them to be violent later in life. The financial consequences and the effects stretch far beyond the victims' family, friends, and communities. There are also social costs. A considerable amount of Canadian resources are directed to address this issue, including healthcare costs, cost to the justice system, to employers and businesses, and to social and community services.
So yeah, so a recent study by Department of Justice Canada, an estimation of the economic impact of spousal violence in Canada, so this was in 2009, estimates the economic impact of one form of violence, spousal violence, to be about $7.4 billion per year. So just spousal violence costs the economic impact of spousal violence in 1 year is about $7.4 billion in Canada. And like I said, that was back in 2009. So you add the inflation to that, and well, here we are. So that amounts to about $225 per Canadian is what it actually costs us annually, just to financially deal with the level of spousal abuse that we have within our country.
Wow.
Yeah.
The $7.4 billion total includes cost to victims, some $6 billion in costs associated with victims seeking medical attention, lost wages, damages, or destroyed property, and the intangibles of pain and suffering and loss of life. Third parties, more than $890 million in third-party costs, including social service, operating costs, losses to employers, the negative impact on children exposed to spousal violence, and other government expenditures. justice system cost. About $545 million in cost borne by the criminal justice system. Example, police, court, prosecution, legal aid, and correctional services. The civil justice system, including civil protection orders, divorces, and separations, and child protection systems.
So now that isn't that crazy, because if they break this down into 3 different parts, and here you have $6 billion going to just victims alone, like $6 billion compared to
7.4.
Right, exactly. And that's just to cover the medical attention, wages, damages. I mean, realistically, a lot of that's going probably to counseling and so on and so forth. It's going, and then the rest of that is basically almost split between the justice system and third parties. The justice system actually has the least amount. So that definitely needs to change, but before that can even change, we need to change some of the system itself, because right now that system doesn't even work, so there's no point in giving any money yet.
Right?
Intangible costs make up most of the economic impact and spousal violence. So 74.1% of intangible costs make up most of the economic impact of spousal violence, followed by tangible costs, which is 22.8%, and the lost future income of children who witness the violence, which is 3.1%. So tangible costs can be further broken down by who actually pays. So the state, in our case the country or the province, pays roughly 63.8%. Individuals, including victims, pay about 29.4%, so it costs victims actually quite a bit of money just to be a victim, so that's unfortunate. And then the private sector, of course, we cover the other 6.9% of that cost, and then of course when you look at the government paying for 63.8%, well, where does that come from? That again comes back from the private sector, so you can pretty much just add those numbers together and there you go. So it basically comes down to taxpayers and victims to cover the cost of this. We're relying on our system to fix it and monitor it and keep us safe. So we definitely need to work with that system a little bit and make some changes there.
Definitely. So as we all know, COVID reared its ugly head back in March. Unfortunately, with lockdowns, everybody has heard that every kind of violence, unfortunately, has been on the rise. Physical, sexual, you name it, adults, children, it's happening. A little bit of personal story myself. I'm a barber, and I cut the hair of police officers and paramedics, and just talking to them after lockdown alone, hearing just how much reported violence had gone up was crazy. It's wow.
On all fronts, like all the way around the board, it's gone up. You name it. So we have a bunch of information, effects of COVID, in regards to family violence, specifically. So this is the information that we were able to find out. So to start off, the Shelter Voices survey says that 52% of 266 participating shelters reported seeing clients who were experiencing either somewhat or much more severe violence, as public health measures aimed at fighting COVID-19 increased social isolation, while job loss fueled tensions over financial insecurities in many households. So basically what's happening here is that the shelters themselves are reporting in surveys that their clients, what they're seeing in their clients is that the violence within their households is becoming more severe since the COVID lockdowns, and when the COVID lockdowns become more severe, the violence within the household becomes more severe with it. So that's concerning.
Very concerning, especially with more lockdowns being threatened or happening. Violence was also happening more frequently, or abusers who hadn't used violence in the past past, we're suddenly using violence, says Chris Mackey, the Research and Policy Manager for Women's Shelters Canada.
Yeah, so she's given quite a few statements here throughout this. The survey also found that 37% of shelters reported changes in the type of violence clients faced, including increased physical attacks resulting in broken bones, strangulations, and stabbings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shelters and transition houses that did not report changes in the rates or type of violence that had seen fewer cases of COVID-19, the report notes.
Yeah, so basically the places that aren't noticing a rise in violence are places that aren't seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases, which means they probably don't have that much going on for lockdowns and restrictions and so on and so forth, the more isolated areas to begin with. So the data show public health restrictions have a huge impact on women and children who are living with their abusers, says Mackey. So just over half of the children in population centers with 1,000 to 29,000 residents reported increases in crisis calls between June and October. So compared with 70% of the shelters in urban centers with populations between 100,000 and just under 1 million. So yeah, about a 70% increase in urban areas, just with crisis calls to shelters between June and October of this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the survey shows women are facing more severe violence at home. At the same time, 71% of shelters reported reducing their capacity in order to maintain physical distancing and other public health measures aimed at stopping the spread of COVID-19.
Yeah, so while 70% of shelters are reporting an increase in crisis calls, we have 71% of shelters are reporting the requirements to reduce their capacity in order to comply with the COVID-19 requirements. And so even though they have a higher demand, they're actually required to fill less spots. So again, very concerning.
For many shelters, financial difficulties increased throughout the pandemic as 38% reported raising significantly less money compared to last year.
Yeah, so yeah, everyone's hurting this year, right? The economy's feeling it, everyone's feeling it. So nonprofits are definitely noticing, right?
Yes.
It's harder to raise funds, so
Less people can donate money.
and so many of these organizations are essential, very essential.
Absolutely.
So stay home governments and public health officials say, framing it as the safest place to be right now, as we all try to avoid a highly infectious coronavirus. But for many women and a scant minority of men, home isn't a safe place at all. Domestic violence has become a worldwide pandemic as COVID-19 itself. In early April, the United Nations reported a horrifying global surge. According to Statistics Canada, just reported that 1 in 10 women are currently very or extremely worried about violence in the home. 1 in 10 women are currently worried about violence in the home, and Canadian police forces are reporting a rise in domestic violence calls. So again, the government's telling us to stay home, that's our safest place, but numbers are showing 1 in 10 women, that is not a safe place at all for them to be. And
that gives me chills. That scares me.
yeah,
I know more than 10
insane.
women.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know, like it's.
Yeah, no, it's extremely concerning, and those numbers again they're too high.
Way too high.
Yeah.
In May 2019, report from Women's Shelters Canada found that 4 in 10 women's shelters were operating at capacity, almost always. It also found that 74% of shelters allow women to overstay provincial guidelines because they have nowhere else to go. Read, no access to affordable housing.
Yeah, so that was in 2019. So May of 2019, so it was just a year prior to the pandemic. The report for Women's Shelters Canada found that 4 in 10 women shelters were operating at capacity almost always.
Wow.
So that's prior to the pandemic. And like I said, we know that 71% of current shelters are reporting reducing their capacity in order to maintain the COVID-19 restrictions and guidelines, right? So if they were already full prior to this, and we know that this is causing an increase in need, and there's now a decrease in capacity, like, this is just one problem after another after another. We're forcing these people to be at home in a very dangerous situation. So yeah, I really hope that we can figure something out soon, because what we have happening right now is definitely not working.
No.
So in Manitoba, Dina Brock is concerned about shelters that are oddly under capacity, so even empty. As provincial coordinator for the Manitoba Association of Women's Shelters, Brock wonders if it has anything to do with newly limited transportation options. There are currently no buses and few taxi services servicing rural Manitoba, and pandemic safety protocols restrict staff from picking women up in their own cars. I believe, and I'm not just speculating, that women and men who are in abusive situations, maybe they're listening to that call to stay home, says Brock. So yeah, we know Manitoba has some pretty serious lockdown restrictions right now. Like, pretty serious. Like, you're not supposed to leave unless it's something essential. They have stuff that's not essential blocked off in stores and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, if you're looking at their shelters and they're completely empty in comparison to other provinces that aren't as locked down as that province, who are beyond capacity, you know, it definitely makes you wonder. It's like, are these lockdowns preventing these people from getting to the shelters? Are, shutting down this transportation and so on and so forth? Is this hurting people more than it's protecting them? Regardless, we know that people are suffering. We know before they were suffering far too much. We know they're suffering more even so now. So eventually, hopefully, somebody can wake somebody up, and we can get enough people to do something about this, because
lockdown isn't working for everybody. No matter how much everybody wants to stay home, it's not the safest place for everybody.
Yeah, unfortunately in these situations, yes, it's not, or we need to have better options available.
Yes.
Something, right? There needs to be something. But unfortunately right now we don't have it in place, so we need to work on that, and I hope that our governments can recognize that that is a concern. And so, again, like I said, if you go on to alberta.ca website, or even if you Google Family Violence Awareness Month, it is Family Violence Awareness Month in Alberta. It's a provincial thing, so Alberta's website, alberta.ca, will pop up and it'll take you to a link. They have a whole bunch of resources. A bunch of this information that we just read to you is all on there. There's also a link where it talks about reporting or contacting somebody if you need to report. So we'll just go over some of that information. So when violence is suspected or when violence is disclosed, adults have a responsibility to take action. So there's a couple different things that you can do. We'll go over those with you. And then, like I said, there's a whole bunch of different resources, depending on the different type of abuse or who's involved with the abuse or so on and so forth. There's tons of phone numbers you can call. There's ones you can call anonymously. There's helplines, you name it. So if you suspect something, or if you're involved in something, and you haven't spoken out to somebody, then please do that. And if you need access to information, or you need access to financial support, or you need a certificate to break a lease, or anything like that, and you can't find it on our website, you can't find it on the alberta.ca website, reach out to any one of our admins, send us a message, send us an email, officialpeopleversuspredators@gmail.ca, and we'll be happy to get that information off to you. So yeah, these are the steps that you should take if you suspect or are aware of some form of violence. This is what you should be doing.
Action 1, acknowledge the child's situation and feelings. Carefully listen to what the child says, but do not interview the child.
Yeah. Next, you should comfort the child and ensure that they are safe. Remember that the child abuse and neglect are never the child's fault.
Next, you take notes and document what the child says and or what you see. And then take action by immediately reporting the violence to your local child protection authority or the police.
When in doubt, reporting suspected child abuse, always report it. You do not have to be 100% certain that the abuse has occurred. The safety of the child or youth may be at risk, and the authorities have the responsibility to determine the facts and evidence, not you. So when in doubt, report it anyways. Always report it because, again, that's not your job. Your job is just to take responsibility as an adult to say something if you suspect or has reason to believe that something is potentially wrong.
The person who hears the disclosure or suspects child abuse or neglect must make the report.
Yeah, so if she calls me and is like, oh, I saw my next door neighbor, beating their child in the backyard, blah, 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 so on and so forth, and I go and make a report on it, nothing's likely going to happen. She needs to make that report. She's the one who's witness to it. She's the one who has the facts and the information. I'm just a third party, and my information is 100% hearsay. So she needs to be the one who makes that report.
Yeah.
And again, so like we said, there's a whole bunch of reporting helplines that are specific to your province. There's ones that are specific to our country, Canada. There's ones that are 24/7. There's ones that are, business lines, you name it. There's tons of, and we're talking about from child abuse. There's a number for senior abuse. There's a helpline for mental health helpline. There's financial helps and supports. There's contacts for shelters. There's contacts for sexual assault services, victim services, Indigenous supports, as well as pet safety. So yeah, guys, like we said, these are available to you. These are available online. We can provide them to you as well.
We're gonna have Lucky throw them up on our website. I'll also, probably
We'll try
jot
to
down.
attach the links to this video as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Later on as well, so you guys can just click on them there if you watch this video later. Look for that update there. So, if anybody has any questions too after the fact, feel free to send us an email or comment on this video, and we're happy to answer anything. Even like I said, down the road, doesn't matter. No big deal there. So.
And yeah, anything you guys need, we're always here. Reach out either to the page or one of the admins. Usually one of us has the information that you need. If not, we find it. If you're in a bad situation, reach out to somebody you trust. Get out of it. You deserve better. It's stuff needs to change on this. So that's all we have for info on Family Violence Awareness Month. Like we said, we'll get everything posted, and I'll try to get some of the info in a post as well. We had some events through the month we just wanted to touch base on. You all may have noticed we've started a new event, Make 'em Famous, Who's Next. We want you guys to know that these are exclusive People versus Predators associations, predators, I guess. These are coming to us, and as we get the information, we're kind of releasing it to you guys, going out to the neighborhoods and doing the awareness.
Yeah, the Make 'em Famous events, they are exclusive to events where we're actually aware of the location, and we're actually exposing the location, the photo, the name, the charges or convictions to the community directly. So those ones we are going forward labeling those as our Make 'em Famous events, because we're going to be quite literally right in their neighborhoods and their backyards. you know, speaking with their neighbors, their communities, and making them aware, which is extremely important, we find. So there's lots of people that obviously we're posting all the time. We have news reports, we have stuff that's coming up across Alberta, Edmonton, Canada, you name it. So our online ones are our online ones and whatever, but if we're doing an event and we're going to their community, then yeah, we're making them famous.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
So just to kind of let you guys know, we go out a couple of days before. We deliver some community notices. 200 usually,
Yes.
surrounding neighbors.
200 notices will fit in mailboxes of all the surrounding neighbors, and then the event itself will be at the closest park that will host
Which is
that.
usually somewhere on their street.
Or across the street, or
Yeah.
it's usually very close. It's not far.
So our first one, that was November 10th. We had James Verkirk in St. Albert. His charges were sexual assault, sexual interference, invitation to sexual touching, making sexual explicit material available to a child. His next court date is December 21st, 2020, for to speak to.
Yeah.
That one, that one got out pretty far. There's a lot of shares, and so we made him famous. His name got out there, his picture got out there. We're very happy to say that people know where he's at and who he is now.
It's amazing how many are in. We look at these small communities surrounding Edmonton, right? I mean, obviously we know there's a lot in Edmonton, and maybe it's just because Edmonton's so big that we almost expect it. I don't know what it is, but we look at these small towns like St. Albert and Spruce Grove, and there's so many. Like the numbers are starting to pile up, and we've only been doing this for a couple of months, and these are all fresh new cases, right? So we're not even going back in history. We're just looking at recent today. And it's surprising to see, and these are nice communities. These are nice towns.
Well, we've been in St. Albert 2 or 3 times already, and we have another 1 or 2 coming up in St. Albert.
Yeah,
so.
We're going to be going back to St. Albert, so exactly, yeah.
So our next, our Make 'em Famous Volume 2 was November 14th. We had Damien Shirley.
Yes.
That was in Meadowlark. His charges were sexual assault ×2, sexual interference, sexual exploitation ×2, making child pornography, possession of child pornography. He only pled guilty to 2.
Well, he pled guilty, and so
he
pled guilty, and the other 5 charges, as a result, were waived.
Yeah.
Or withdrawn. Sorry, they were withdrawn.
So he pled guilty.
And so he was actually convicted of sexual assault and possession of child pornography. Yeah, that was 2 of the 7.
He was released in May this year.
Yeah.
He's on 18-month probation right now. He's got a bunch of conditions and stuff. You can go under our topics on our group. You can see everything.
We have a full list of his conditions. One of his conditions is he is actually allowed to attend playgrounds as long as he's with his children, but he is not allowed to interact with any other child at the playground other than his children. So, I mean, it is important for parents to familiarize themselves with what this person looks like and who they are, because he could be at your playground with his children. I think it's something you should know. So Meadowlark area is on the west side of Edmonton, very close to West Edmonton Park actually. And again, nice little community, tons of families. There's couple schools, couple parks. So yeah.
And Damien Shirley is known to move.
Often, every year.
Every year.
He moves regularly all over the city.
Just because it's Meadowlark doesn't mean it won't be
your
Millwoods next week or next year.
Sherwood Park or whatever else. And that's the thing is everybody thinks that this stuff doesn't directly affect them, or it's not in their community, or they have a nice community, or they have nice neighborhoods. Like Damien Shirley is not an awful person if you don't look at his criminal history and you just look at him otherwise. Otherwise, he blends in quite well. He,
As do
taxpayer, you know, he has a girlfriend,
Business.
children, you know, works, all that kind of good stuff, right? So, you know, they don't always, you know, have tattoos on their face, and they're not always obviously criminals.
not
Look
always
at
the
Rodney
creepy.
Bigger, right? Our favorite.
Hi Rodney, if you're watching.
Hi Rodney.
You like to watch, so you know. Hi.
So right, but I mean, look at him. Here's the perfect. And look, I mean, look at all the guys in that town in general in Spruce Grove.
They're not
You
always
have
the
Kenneth
60-year-old
Turlock, you have
creepy
Chris
old man.
Waka or whatever. So you have the school teacher, you have, you know, a cafe owner, you have the millionaire realtor, and
Living
here
close to his $1
they're
million home.
all currently up for charges related to child sexual crimes within the last year. And it's,
Yep.
you know, these are all respected members of society and so on and so forth, right? So, I mean, guys, it can be anybody.
Anybody.
And don't think that your neighborhood is safe just because it's your neighborhood, because it's not.
Don't think that creepy Uncle Joe isn't actually creepy. Like, you gotta realize that these things might actually happen.
And if one day you get a notice in your mailbox saying that we're going to be in your park on the weekend for a couple hours
Come on,
doing
say
an info
hi.
session, yeah, come say hi. We'd love to see you.
It's peaceful.
That's why we're there. Yeah, bring your kids. We're just
My
going to give
kid's
you
there.
some papers, some notices, some info, ask some questions. That's all it is. It's a good
Yeah.
time. So
It's great.
Yeah.
So the last event that we did this month was it was kind of a special one for us. A lot of you know that we've been involved with the Justice for Aries movement since back in the summer. Baby Aries holds a special place in all of our hearts. Ourselves have never actually, we didn't get to meet Baby Aries, but we still, we hold a special spot for him. People versus Predators, and we teamed up with Ubaka and Justice for Aries. And we did a toy drive. All the donations went to Winhouse and Zebra. It was a huge success. There was a huge trunk, the back of a truck full of toys.
yeah,
It was crazy.
It was amazing how many toys we were able to collect. There
Yeah.
were people that dropped off tons of stuff the night of the event. We had a bunch of people that dropped stuff off to us prior to the event that couldn't make it to the event, so we were out picking up toys. We had some people mail toys to us who just weren't close enough to be able to drop them off and didn't want to make us drive that far, so that was very nice. So yeah, we were happy to take those too. Yeah, no, it was a great success.
I believe some donations came in from Newfoundland as well.
Oh wow, that's what I mean.
I'm
Like
pretty
it
sure
was.
your family sent some through, so.
Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
we filled the back of a truck. The family was ecstatic. It was great to work with Ubaka and be able to do that event with them, and it was really nice that we were asked by Justice for Aries. So the event was Justice for Aries, and then it was them that asked us and Ubaka to team up with them and host that. So we were honored to be able to do that, and I know that Ashton mentioned, you know, the possibilities of maybe doing an annual thing, and so, you know, if that's something that happens, we look forward to being able to help them with that again next year.
Absolutely. Yeah, so just, you know, a huge thank you to Ubaka for helping out with the event and coming out and supporting Ashton and the family. And thank you so much, Ashton, for asking us to be a part of this, because we want to continue to be a part of the Justice for Aries movement and be there through the whole thing.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to be involved.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it was a good time.
So that was our events for November. You know, you're seeing the posts; they're coming daily. We're keeping up with it. If you guys have posts you want to submit them. If they're already in there, we'll always tell you. You know, they're a duplicate post or something like that. Just because we've denied your post for it being a duplicate, don't hesitate to try to throw another one in there, because you never know. We miss things too, and you might have it. So. Yeah, that's about it. We have one event coming up this next weekend.
Yeah, so Saturday.
Next
so,
Sunday.
Oh, is it Sunday?
Yeah,
Sorry,
next
so it's
Sunday.
December 7th?
6th.
6th. Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Sorry. Sunday, December 6th will be our Make 'em Famous Volume 3. We have that event up on our page. I believe it's also in the group pinned to the announcements.
Yeah.
This Predator is in St. Albert once again. We are in St. Albert. His charges will be, well, they are
currently
sexual exploitation, making sexually explicit material available to a child, and luring ×2.
So these are alleged. Like I said, he's currently going through the court process. We know the area that they're currently residing in, and by the sounds of it, they grew up and were raised in that community. So definitely important that everyone's aware that these are current charges, and that obviously this person is on bail and has conditions to go along with that. So we'll be in the community this weekend, and we'll be going out probably Thursday night to put flyers up in St. Albert. So if there's anybody free in St. Albert that wants to help out, do flyers Thursday night, feel free to come join us. Send us a message or comment on the event that we have posted.
Always looking for volunteers.
Yeah, also feel free to come to the event. We're going to have our handouts there. So we have a bunch of information for parents, information for them, information to help them talk to their children and talk to their teens and so on and so forth, information about online safety, all that kind of good stuff. So it's just a good starting point for everybody. We always encourage everyone to do their own research, obviously. And do research with your family as well. Do family research. So involve your children in some of that research as well, obviously after you've done a little bit of your own. But involve your children in that research because they're more likely to remember it, to understand it, respect it, if they're actually involved in that process as well. So we always encourage that. So definitely if you have a chance to come out and see us, get some of that information. We still have a bunch of our panic alarms and the webcam covers. I think we have a couple t-shirts left, so if anybody does want one of those, let us know before they're gone. 2 left, yeah, so we'll have to get another order placed for those soon. If there's anything else people are looking for, let us know, give us a heads up, and we can get an eye out for that. I know people have been looking for some hoodies and sweaters, so we're working on that, getting there. But we have lots of good things coming up. We're going to do another live video here soon with an update, and that'll be coming up in December. And then we're also going to do a live video later on in December before Christmas, and that's going to be regarding the first legislative petition that's coming out in January. So the first petition regarding bail. So we're going to be answering questions, so if people have questions about that, we're going to create a post for that, and people can comment their questions. They can also watch the live and ask questions there, and they can also ask questions after the fact as well, and we're happy to answer those too. But we're just going to give a whole bunch of information, and like we do, we're just going to talk anyway. And hopefully, hopefully you guys will be interested in the information that we have regarding that, because that's going to be a big one, and we definitely need tons of support for that one.
Absolutely.
So,
reach out. We need canvassers everywhere.
Yeah, we definitely need canvassers across Canada. So if you're interested in canvassing, get in touch with us. Again, we'll be talking more about that on our live video that we'll be doing around mid-December, so keep an eye out for that. We will be having a post that will go out about that, and we'll be reminding people. So yeah, that's going to be a big one. Definitely keep an eye out for that, and then we'll have an update that we're going to do here in a week or two that Barbie and I will do. It'll just be an update night. We're just going to go over some more updates about current guys, the current court dates, what some of this stuff means. You guys can ask questions about that, give some updates regarding our events. Some of the plans that we have coming up, we have a lot of really big things coming up that we're really excited to share with people. So we're going to have a big talk about some of that stuff. So we don't want to get into too much tonight. So
yeah, so we're going to start trying to do 2 of these live info sessions a month. We're going to try to do like an update of past events and upcoming events, and then one with all of our updates on our predators. So we'll have our live updates on our predators, and then we'll release them online throughout the week.
We'll do our live updates. You'll get all of the information kind of first there, and then throughout the week it'll all get updated on our social media and our websites and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to just watch the live videos instead of having to follow along with all the posts and the events and so on and so forth, you can get kind of just a nice little recap of kind of what's coming up and what has happened. And then, of course, if there's anything you're interested in, you can keep an eye out on our social media and our pages for that coming up and more information, or reach out to us for more information as well. So, yeah, we'll try and do, I think, every 2 weeks, and it'll likely be a Sunday night. We'll keep that going. We'll probably do 7 or 7:30 every Sunday, and hopefully we can start meeting up with everybody, get together, have a drink, right? We can have a glass of wine, a beer, milk. I don't care what it is. But yeah, come chat with us. We'll go over some info, we'll answer your questions, and hopefully we can get as much info out there as possible and get tons of support. So,
all right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.